Ascent, Blessings, and Prosperity, a Grail-inspired clarification. A guide to mankind on the true meaning of rising, receiving, and flourishing in creation. Foreword. A call to true ascent in an age of material illusion. Humanity today speaks endlessly of ascent, blessings, and prosperity, yet rarely does it understand what these words truly mean within creation. The age has become loud with promises of sudden breakthroughs, supernatural wealth transfers, and effortless elevation, all proclaimed without any knowledge of the laws that govern life. The majority pursue ascent without transformation, blessings without purity, and prosperity without service. Thus the human being stands confused, frustrated, and spiritually impoverished, despite all his outward striving. This book comes as a gentle yet firm light beam upon this confusion. It is not written to flatter or comfort illusions, but to awaken clarity, recognition, and responsibility. Its purpose is to free the sincere seeker from the shadows of false hopes, emotional spirituality, and the distortions of materialism. It lifts the words ascent, blessings, and prosperity out of the realm of human invention and returns them to their rightful place within the laws of God, as revealed and clarified through the Grail Message. True ascent is not a rise in outward status, but the elevation of the spirit through obedience to the will of God. True blessings are not arbitrary gifts, but the lawful responses of creation to the purity, gratitude, and willing effort of a soul aligned with light. True prosperity is not the piling up of earthly goods, but the flourishing of the spirit, the fruitfulness of right radiations, and the joyful unfolding of destiny. The reader who approaches these pages with humility, openness, and earnest longing will discover a new vision of life, one that restores dignity to effort, purpose to challenges, and sanctity to growth. The message within is both timeless and urgent. It is a reminder that ascent begins within, blessings come through alignment, and prosperity is the inevitable harvest of a life lived in harmony with the laws of creation. May these words serve as a clear lamp for those who seek truth in a world clouded by illusion. May they strengthen the sincere, awaken the sleeping, and guide all who long for upliftment back into the radiant flow of the will of God. Introduction. The misunderstood triad: ascent, blessings, and prosperity. The Grail Message and the path to spiritual upliftment. No three spiritual concepts are more misused today than ascent, blessings, and prosperity. They have been diluted, commercialized, and emptied of their original sacred meaning. For many, ascent has become a competition for status, blessings, a request for ease, and prosperity, a craving for wealth. Yet none of these reflect the will of God or the structure of creation. Humanity has fallen into the mistake of measuring spiritual realities with earthly yardsticks. Men judge their worth by what they own, not by what they are. They pursue outward success while neglecting inward growth. They expect blessings without sowing the seeds required by the laws, and they seek prosperity without understanding the spiritual currents that produce it. The Grail Message corrects this confusion with luminous clarity. It shows that ascent is the natural upward movement of the purified human spirit. Blessings are the radiational returns of harmony with divine laws. Prosperity is the lawful fruit of right volition, pure thoughts, and noble deeds. This book draws from those clarifications to illuminate the true meaning of these three interconnected states. Every human being longs for upliftment. Every human being desires a life of fruitfulness and joy. But longing and desire are not enough. Only recognition, willing obedience, and inner transformation can open the way. Here, the reader will learn why ascent cannot be forced, demanded, or claimed, but must be earned through inner purification. Why blessings are not magical interventions, but responses from creation to what a person radiates. Why prosperity is not luck, chance, or divine favoritism, but the harvest of one's spiritual condition and inner posture. The Grail Message reveals that every human being stands within a living web of radiations, laws, and consequences. Nothing happens arbitrarily. Nothing is accidental. Whatever rises has prepared itself to rise. Whatever flourishes has sown the seeds that allow flourishing. Thus, ascent is lawful. Blessings are lawful. Prosperity is lawful. This book will guide the reader toward understanding these laws and aligning with them so that ascent becomes natural, blessings unbroken, and prosperity a luminous unfolding of one's true path. The time of ignorance must end. The era of passive dependence must fall away. A new age of clarity, responsibility, and spiritual maturity must dawn. May this work accompany you on that journey. Part 1. The True Meaning of Ascent. Rising in Spirit, Not in Social Ranking. Chapter 1. What Spiritual Ascent Really Is. Spiritual ascent is the upward movement of the human spirit within creation, a rising toward clarity, purity, luminosity, and truth. It is not an achievement but a natural consequence of the right inner condition. In creation, only what is light rises, what is heavy sinks. This fundamental law alone already unmasks the modern confusion surrounding the idea of rising, or moving up, in life. Humanity today equates ascent with status, wealth, recognition, platforms, social visibility, or the accumulation of material advantages. But none of these have inherent weightlessness. None of them have radiational purity. None of them lift the spirit upward. At best, they are neutral, and at worst, they burden a person with heaviness that drags him downward. According to the Grail Message, true ascent is a radiational event. It occurs when the spirit vibrates in harmony with the will of God, expressed in the laws of creation. Ascent is born when a human being begins to live in earnestness, truthfulness, purity of thought, and willing obedience to what is noble, just, and luminous. Ascent begins the moment a person steps out of self-deception and enters truth. It continues as he aligns his intuitive perception with what is right, noble, and uplifting. It is not a ladder of human achievement but a path of inner ripening. It is not louder steps on the stage of life but softer steps in the realm of spirit. The one who ascends spiritually grows lighter, clearer, more sincere, more responsible, more pure, and more receptive to guidance from the light. This is Ascent, the upward journey of the awakened spirit. Chapter 2. The Spirit's Journey Upward Through the Laws. The ascent of the human spirit is not created by human effort or personal brilliance. It unfolds naturally, lawfully, within the living laws of creation. These laws act as the rails on which every spirit travels, whether knowingly or unknowingly. They include the law of reciprocal action, the law of attraction of homogeneous species, and the law of spiritual gravity. These laws do not punish or reward, they maintain order. And in this order lies the secret of ascent. A spirit rises because it has become light. A spirit sinks because it has become heavy. This is not a judgment, it is physics of the spiritual realm. As the spirit nourishes itself with truth, purity, gratitude, faithful service, and noble volition, its radiations brighten. These bright radiations make it buoyant within creation, enabling it to rise into purer realms. Such ascent brings new clarity, new strength, new recognitions, and new blessings, because the higher realms can radiate more directly into a spirit that has aligned itself with their purity. But when a person clings to vanity, deceit, envy, indolence, pride, or material obsession, the spirit becomes heavy. This heaviness binds it to the lower strata of existence, regions of confusion, limitation, and spiritual dullness. The journey upward is therefore never accidental. Ascent is the lawful fruit of correct inner sowing. Every uplifting thought, every sincere prayer, every pure desire, every noble deed sends out radiations that attract similar luminous currents. These currents, in turn, draw the spirit upward. Thus, spiritual ascent is the natural, lawful, unavoidable result of right living. Chapter 3. The Difference Between Earthly Promotion and Spiritual Elevation. Humanity has tragically merged two completely different realities, earthly advancement and spiritual elevation. But these stand worlds apart. Earthly promotion is determined by human systems, economics, politics, institutions, connections, talent, strategy, and in many cases, manipulation or chance. It is shallow, temporary, and external. It can be granted or taken away by men. Spiritual elevation, however, is determined solely by the inner state of a human being. It is measured by purity, humility, sincerity, love of truth, and the strength of the intuitive will. It cannot be faked, purchased, or bestowed through influence. No man can give it. No man can block it. It is governed exclusively by the immutable laws of God. A person may rise to the highest earthly office yet sink spiritually. Another may live quietly in obscurity yet shine like a radiant tower in the spiritual realm. The mistake of humanity has been in assuming that social rising equals divine favor. This error has produced arrogance, self-deception, and expectations that prosperity automatically reveals righteousness. But the Grail Message corrects this. Spiritual elevation is not compatible with vanity or pride. Earthly promotion concerns the body and intellect. Spiritual elevation concerns the soul and spirit. When this difference is understood, the illusions surrounding destiny breakthroughs and supernatural promotion collapse instantly. Chapter 4: The Path of Inner Ripening, How Growth Truly Happens. Ascent comes only through ripening. Ripening comes only through living experiences. This is why no human being can be forced or hurried into spiritual maturity. Growth cannot be imparted by sermon, ceremony, or enthusiasm. It unfolds quietly within the soul, through genuine recognition. The Grail Message explains that the human spirit must awaken, perceive, choose, and act. These four movements produce ripening, and each movement must be genuine. Growth begins with awakening, the moment a human spirit admits truth, however painful. Recognition illuminates the air like a lamp shining in a long-neglected room. Then comes choice. The spirit must decide to align itself with what is right. And finally comes action, the living, doing expression of the new volition. This cycle, repeated in countless forms through daily life, produces inner ripening. Ripening softens harshness. Ripening dissolves vanity. Ripening enriches understanding. Ripening strengthens the will. Ripening polishes the spirit until it glows. No emotional excitement, religious fervor, or motivational energy can produce ripening. It only comes from truth lived, not truth admired. It comes from discipline, consistency, sincerity, humility, and readiness to correct oneself again and again. Thus, ascent is not a sudden event, nor is it a reward. It is a harvest. Chapter 5: Hindrances to Ascent in Today's World. The modern world is overflowing with obstacles to ascent, subtle, attractive, even celebrated obstacles. Humanity today no longer recognizes what darkens the spirit. Instead, it calls these very hindrances progress, ambition, enjoyment, and freedom. The greatest hindrance is noise, inner and outer. The constant bombardment of information, entertainment, sensationalism, and mental stimulation prevents stillness, and without stillness the intuition cannot speak. The spirit suffocates under an avalanche of impressions. Next is material obsession, the belief that life's meaning rests in wealth, status, and physical comfort. This binds the spirit to the earthbound intellect, which is incapable of true ascent. Another major hindrance is vanity, the hunger to be seen, celebrated, or envied. Vanity thickens the spirit's radiations with heaviness and draws it toward shallow circles of thought. Sensuality also clouds ascent, because it focuses the human being entirely on the corporeal, drowning out the quiet voice of the spirit. Finally, moral relativism, where good and evil are blurred, makes purity seem old-fashioned and uprightness seem rigid. When values collapse, the way upward becomes invisible. Yet in spite of all these hindrances, the laws of creation remain active. Whoever purifies his inner life rises. Whoever obeys the inner voice of truth strengthens his radiations. Whoever lives sincerely, humbly, faithfully, and honestly is lifted, naturally and inevitably. Nothing can stop the ascent of a spirit that is aligned with the light. Part 2: Blessings in the Light of Truth. Understanding the nature, source, and flow of blessings. Chapter 6: What a blessing truly is. A blessing is not an emotional wish, a pious declaration, or a religious formula. A blessing is a radiational upliftment, a strengthening and enrichment that reaches the human spirit because its inner condition corresponds to the light. It is the lawful inflow of higher powers into one's earthly path. It is never magic, never favoritism, and never the result of religious activity meant to win God's attention. In the Grail Message, blessings are explained not as arbitrary acts of reward, but as effects, radiational responses to the state of one's inner being. Every human spirit is surrounded by a fine ethereal environment, and blessings flow only when this environment is bright, open, and receptive. They cannot penetrate darkness, turmoil, impurity, deception, or wrong motives. Thus, blessings are not given, they are released when the human being becomes capable of receiving them. A blessing is therefore the natural consequence of alignment. Blessings testify to harmony between the human will and the laws that govern creation. This understanding alone dissolves centuries of misconceptions. A blessing is not something one begs for. It is something one prepares for, through purity, clarity, truthfulness, and unwavering inner uprightness. Where these are present, blessings arrive without strain. Where they are absent, no prayer, fasting, sacrifice, or ritual can pull them down. Blessings are a lawful response, not a divine exception. Chapter 7. Radiational receptivity, the prerequisite for blessings. To understand blessings, one must understand receptivity. Radiational receptivity is the ability of the spirit to absorb, hold, and radiate light-filled currents. In creation, every movement is radiational. Human beings attract according to their kind, light to light, darkness to darkness, peace to peace, confusion to confusion. Blessings cannot attach themselves to a vessel that vibrates at a disharmonious frequency. Fear, greed, envy, dishonesty, laziness, arrogance, and spiritual indifference block receptivity. They create murkiness in the aura, making the spirit heavy, dense, and closed. The Grail Message teaches that the spirit becomes receptive through purity, humility, gratitude, joy, and genuine striving for what is noble. These qualities lift the spiritual radiations so that higher currents can flow in without obstruction. Where there is receptivity, intuition becomes clearer. Guidance becomes more obvious. Doors open easily. Strength increases. Confusion dissolves. Opportunities align. One does not force blessings by willpower. One raises oneself to where blessings already flow. Blessings are constantly radiating in creation, but only those attuned can receive them. In truth, blessings do not come from outside, they strike the receptive spirit like sunlight striking a clean mirror. Chapter 8. Blessings as consequences, not random gifts. In the light of truth, blessings are results, the natural harvest of inner attitudes and outward deeds. They are governed strictly by the law of reciprocal action. Whatever a human being sows, whether in thought, intention, or action, returns magnified. Thus, pure thoughts bring clarity and support. Noble intentions bring favor and openings. Truthful actions bring protection and upliftment. Joyful service brings enrichment. Consistency brings stability. Nothing about blessings is accidental. They do not fall upon people unpredictably. They do not have seasons of favor or dryness. Instead, the human being experiences what he has formed in his radiational environment. This means, a blessing is a mirror, not a miracle. Where inner harmony exists, blessings flow like water through a clear channel. Where inner disarray prevails, blessings are blocked by the very walls a person has built through wrong choices. This truth corrects the widespread belief that blessings are selectively distributed, as though God picks favorites. In reality, blessings depend entirely on the alignment of the human being with the law, not on divine moods or religious identity. Chapter 9. Wrong concepts about blessings, emotionalism, ritualism, and bargaining. Humanity has buried the true meaning of blessings under layers of misconception. Instead of understanding blessings as radiational consequences, many treat them as products of emotional outbursts, religious rituals, or bargaining transactions with God. 1. Emotionalism. People assume that strong emotional displays, crying, shouting, dancing, or chanting, attract blessings. Yet emotions have no spiritual weight. They pass like clouds. Only the inner state matters. 2. Ritualism. Many believe blessings can be triggered through ceremonies, objects, oils, water, prayer sessions, or prophetic declarations. Rituals can awaken a person's resolve but cannot alter spiritual laws. If the inner state is impure, no ritual can produce a lasting blessing. 3. Bargaining with God. Some attempt to offer prayer, fasting, donations, or acts of service in exchange for blessings. Blessings, however, do not respond to bribery. They respond to purity, truth, and alignment. A person who gives generously but lives deceitfully cannot be blessed. These misconceptions have trapped millions in illusions. They keep people spiritually stagnant while promising outcomes that cannot materialize. The Grail Message restores clarity. Blessings follow the same laws as planting and harvest. One cannot manipulate them. One can only prepare for them. Chapter 10. The Lawful Path to Blessings Through Purity and Uprightness. Blessings flow according to immutable spiritual laws. These laws do not bend for cheers, titles, personality, or desperation. They respond only to the state of the spirit. Purity clears the inner landscape. Uprightness strengthens the spiritual will. Truthfulness aligns the radiations. Gratitude opens the channels. Justice steadies the soul. Love elevates the entire being into the light. This is why the upright human being seems favored, not because favoritism exists, but because he lives in harmony with the structure of creation. To walk the lawful path of blessings, one must maintain inner cleanliness, reject deceit, manipulation, and greed, cultivate sincerity in all relationships, work diligently and ethically, honor responsibilities, speak truthfully, serve joyfully, reject spiritual laziness, listen to intuition, stay connected to noble striving. Blessings are attracted to those who live blessing-worthy lives. They follow the person whose radiations shine bright enough to hold light-filled currents. This understanding liberates humanity from helplessness. Blessings are not withheld, they are unlocked. They are not far, they are simply inaccessible to the impure and unreadied. In truth, the path to blessings is the path to becoming a clear vessel for light. Part 3. The True Nature of Prosperity. Freedom from Misconceptions and Material Illusions. Chapter 11. Prosperity is a radiational state, not accumulated wealth. Prosperity is one of the most misused words in modern spiritual language. For many, it has become synonymous with comfort, wealth, social advantage, or the ability to acquire whatever one desires. Yet none of these human interpretations touches the true core of prosperity. In the light of the Grail Message, prosperity is first a radiational condition, a living harmony between the human spirit and the laws of creation. Everything in creation operates through radiation, giving, receiving, attracting, and repelling according to inner states. Prosperity, therefore, is not something we possess but something we emit. It is a natural outcome of inner clarity, purity of intention, and a will aligned with light. Just as a plant thrives when its roots rest in nourishing soil, the human being prospers when his radiations harmonize with the will of God. True prosperity brings peace, order, joy, and fruitful outcomes in all spheres of life. It cannot be bought, coerced, prayed into existence through bargaining, or secured through rituals. It is the exact harvest of the seeds we carry within, expressed outwardly in circumstances that reflect our inner state. Those who chase prosperity externally remain poor within. Those who cultivate radiational harmony attract the outward reflections of richness without effort. Prosperity is not an event, a season, or a breakthrough moment. It is a state of being, a quiet but powerful alignment that naturally draws all that belongs to us on our path of destiny. Chapter 12. The Difference Between Material Success and Spiritual Prosperity. Material success is temporary, fragile, and dependent on external conditions, economies, markets, opportunities, relationships, and time. It is measured in quantities, money, popularity, influence, or possessions. Humanity has exalted this form of success, treating it as proof of intelligence, divine favor, or spiritual strength. But spiritual prosperity is of an entirely different nature. It is measured not in ownership but in inner wealth, clarity, peace, joy, strength, maturity, and the ability to bless others with one's mere presence. Material success is unstable, spiritual prosperity is permanent. Material success can be inherited, spiritual prosperity must be earned. Material success may be gained through manipulation, ambition, or chance. Spiritual prosperity obeys only the immutable laws. In spiritual prosperity, the human being becomes fruitful, meaning that his works, words, relationships, and decisions produce good outcomes, order, upliftment, harmony, because they arise from a pure core. Prosperity in the spiritual sense may manifest outwardly in material forms, but the outward never defines the inward. Many wealthy individuals are radiationally impoverished, many materially simple individuals are spiritually rich. The Grail Message emphasizes, where the spirit is awake and active, blessings flow. This is the key. Prosperity follows awakening, not the other way around. Chapter 13. Prosperity is harmony, peace, and fruitfulness. Prosperity is the natural expression of a life that is in harmony with the laws of creation. These laws, reciprocal action, attraction of homogeneous species, the weaving of threads, and the law of spiritual gravity, govern the unfolding of all human experiences. When a person's inner state contradicts these laws, confusion, stagnation, and setbacks arise. When the person aligns with them, harmony flows, and prosperity emerges effortlessly. Harmony in thought, word, and action produces peace within. Peace produces clarity, and clarity produces right decisions. Right decisions produce fruitfulness, the hallmark of spiritual prosperity. This fruitfulness appears in many forms. Healthy relationships, free of manipulation and fear. Stable work, where effort produces visible good. Mental clarity, enabling sound judgment. Emotional steadiness, free from anxiety and turmoil. Inner joy, not dependent on possessions or outcomes. Purpose, the ability to walk one's destined path confidently. Such a life is overflowing, not necessarily with money, but with meaning, right timing, provision, and grace. Prosperity is therefore not noise, display, or exaggeration. It is not the frantic pursuit of more. It is the quiet, steady movement of a life aligned with truth, bearing fruit in season, bringing renewal to oneself and others. Chapter 14. Misconceptions, Prosperity Gospel, and Commercialized Spirituality. Few distortions have harmed modern humanity as deeply as the commercialization of spiritual truths. The so-called prosperity gospel teaches that God rewards worship with wealth, that giving money to religious institutions guarantees material return, and that blessings can be purchased through tithes, offerings, or mouth proclamations. This view is a grave deviation from the laws of creation. Blessings cannot be bought, prosperity cannot be traded, ascent cannot be negotiated. Human beings cannot bribe the laws of God with money, flattery, or emotional prayers. The laws respond only to the inner condition, not the outer performing. Commercialized spirituality distorts the meaning of God's will, reduces divine guidance to financial gain, and teaches people to desire what the earth can give rather than what the spirit needs. It blinds the masses while enriching a few. Worst of all, it disconnects the individual from sincere self-examination by promising shortcuts. True prosperity does not arise from rituals, declarations, or emotional worship but from the transformation of the inner being. Without purity, uprightness, and obedience to the laws, all outer attempts remain empty and fruitless. In the light of the Grail Message, any prosperity that requires manipulation, deception, or spiritual bargaining is not prosperity at all, but a radiational debt that will eventually demand repayment. Chapter 15. The Harvest Principle, the True Origin of Prosperity. Every form of prosperity, spiritual, relational, material, emotional, flows from the harvest principle, also known as the law of reciprocal action. Whatever a person sows, that shall he also reap. Prosperity is therefore the harvest of right sowing. Purity of intention, honesty in work, uprightness in relationships, gratitude, diligence, compassion, humility, clarity, inner discipline, steadfast obedience to the laws. These sow seeds into the radiational environment and return later as good outcomes, favorable circumstances, open doors, right helpers, and peace-filled paths. Likewise, those who sow envy, laziness, greed, manipulation, or deception will reap confusion, stagnation, loss, and sorrow, not because God is angry, but because the laws return to each one what he has created. The harvest principle is the most reliable source of prosperity, for nothing can block the return of a seed except the sower himself. Prosperity is therefore not achieved. It is grown. It is not demanded. It is earned. It is not prayed into existence. It is lived into existence. It is not a miracle. It is justice. And because it is justice, prosperity cannot be denied to the one who has sown rightly, even if the world opposes him. Time may delay the harvest, but when the fruits ripen, they are abundant, pure, and long-lasting. Part 4. The Spiritual Foundations of Ascent, Blessings, and Prosperity. Radiations, Laws, Intuition, Moral Anchoring. Chapter 16. Radiations. The invisible forces guiding human destiny. Every human life unfolds within a universe woven by radiations. These radiations, spiritual, ethereal, and material, form a network of forces through which every thought, every volition, and every deed produces an effect. As the Grail Message clarifies, nothing exists in isolation. No human is ever cut off, floating independently through life. Instead, we live in a sea of radiations that respond to who we are, what we carry within, and how we orient ourselves. To understand ascent, blessings, and prosperity, one must first understand radiations. Radiations as carriers of light or darkness. Radiations are not symbolic, they are real streams of power. They can be luminous, carrying clarity, strength, upliftment, or they can be heavy and dark, carrying confusion, stagnation, and decay. A human being stands at the point of intersection of these currents. Through his inner condition, he determines what he draws toward himself. A bright inner life attracts bright radiations. A heavy inner life attracts heavy radiations. Thus, blessings and prosperity are not given from outside. They are drawn by resonance. The spirit's natural connection to radiational light. The human spirit is by nature luminous, capable of receiving light power from the higher realms. When the spirit leads, the person intuitively gravitates toward truth, justice, upright choices, and noble striving. In such conditions, the individual's radiational field brightens, making him receptive to higher support, clear guidance, and lawful upliftment. Prosperity has its beginning here. In an inner radiational state that is aligned, open, and light. How radiational disturbances block blessings. When a human being cultivates envy, greed, fear, dishonesty, or indifference to truth, he lowers his radiational frequency. In these darker layers, nothing truly fruitful can arise. This is why many struggle materially, relationally, professionally, and spiritually, not because fate is cruel, but because their radiational condition is not receptive to light. Blessings cannot attach themselves to a vessel whose radiations repel them. Thus, the first foundation of all ascent and prosperity is the purification of one's radiational environment. Chapter 17. The Law of Reciprocal Action and its Effects on Prosperity. If radiations create the environment, then the law of reciprocal action, known also as sowing and reaping, governs the movement within it. This law is unchangeable, incorruptible, and ever active. It ensures that every seed planted in thought, word, or deed returns to the sower multiplied. Prosperity, true prosperity, is one of the fruits of this law. Every seed returns in its own form. It is impossible to plant seeds of dishonesty and reap peace. It is impossible to sow laziness and reap success. It is impossible to sow bitterness and reap joy. And it is equally impossible to sow genuine service, goodwill, discipline, truthfulness, and inner purity without reaping upliftment. This is why blessings are lawful consequences, not divine gambles. The world wrongly believes blessings are bestowed through emotion, ritual, or religious bargaining. But the law of reciprocal action dissolves such illusions. What returns to a person is what he has propelled into creation. The multiplying power of the law. The law does not return seeds in equal measure. It amplifies them. A single act of goodwill may unfold into unexpected opportunities. A single decision for honesty may redirect an entire destiny. The law multiplies because it uses the radiational forces of creation itself to carry the seeds outward and back again. Thus, prosperity is not a miracle. It is the multiplied harvest of inner attitudes and outward actions aligned with the will of the Creator. Misfortune is a harvest too. Not all painful experiences are failures. Some are harvests of past wrong seed sowing, lessons sent not as punishment but as correction. When understood rightly, they become stepping stones to spiritual ascent. In this law lies the justice and clarity of all blessings. Chapter 18. Intuition is the Spirit's steering power. Intuition is the voice of the Spirit. It is the inner knowing that arises spontaneously, without forced thinking. It is the true compass of human life. The Grail Message teaches that intuition is the eye of the spirit, the means through which the human being receives guidance, warnings, direction, and recognition. No ascent can happen without the awakening of intuition. The intellect cannot lead the spirit upward. The error of modern humanity is the exaltation of the intellect. The intellect, being bound to the earthly plane, cannot perceive the spiritual currents necessary for true prosperity and blessings. It can analyze, calculate, argue, and dissect, but it cannot see. This blindness is why many chase prosperity but do not find it. They follow mental constructs instead of the gentle leading of the spirit. Intuition is a radiational receiver. When the inner life is quiet, clean, and receptive, intuition vibrates clearly. It receives impulses from higher realms, nudges, insights, warnings, inspirations, that align a person's steps with the right opportunities and protect him from danger. Every genuine blessing begins with a spiritual prompting. Every true prosperity path begins with a quiet inner recognition. The tragedy of ignoring intuition. Whenever intuition is silenced, through fear, ambition, pride, sensuality, or noise, the person steps out of the stream of higher guidance. He becomes vulnerable to missteps, wrong partnerships, harmful environments, and wasted time. Thus, intuition is one of the highest foundations of ascent. It is the steering wheel of destiny. Chapter 19, Purity and Inner Attitude, the Soil of Prosperity. Just as soil determines the quality of a harvest, so does inner attitude determine the fruits a person draws toward himself. Purity is the essential quality of the inner soil. Without purity, nothing lasting or luminous can grow. Purity is not weakness, but strength. Purity is not naivety, it is not simplicity of mind. Purity is clarity, free from deceit, malice, ulterior motives, and greed. A pure person sees more clearly, recognizes more quickly, and acts more justly. His decisions are unclouded, his relationships are healthier, his opportunities align more naturally because he repels nothing bright through inner corruption. Wrong inner attitudes as obstacles. Jealousy, impatience, opportunism, dishonesty, and pride poison the inner field. They repel blessings because blessings are of the light. Where a heart is not aligned with light, prosperity cannot take root. Purity opens the gates of blessing. Every blessing needs a space to land. Purity creates that space. It ensures that what arrives can be sustained, appreciated, and used rightly. Many people lose blessings not because they lacked opportunity, but because they lack the purity to sustain them. Purity is the foundation of all lasting ascent. Chapter 20, Alignment with the Will of God, the Highest Guarantee. To be aligned with the will of God is to move in harmony with the laws of creation. This is the highest form of prosperity, the deepest form of blessing, and the surest path of ascent. The will of God is expressed in His laws. The will of God is not hidden. It flows through the law of attraction, the law of reciprocal action, the law of spiritual gravity, the law of movement, the law of homogeneity. When a person aligns with these laws through purity, truthfulness, diligence, love, humility, and justice, he naturally rises. Nothing can hinder him because he moves with the strongest forces in existence. Misalignment leads to struggle. Whenever a human being resists truth, embraces selfishness, or walks in dishonesty, he moves against the will of the Creator. Life becomes heavy, progress becomes slow, blessings seem distant, opportunities collapse. This is not punishment, it is the natural result of moving against the current of creation. The blessings of perfect alignment. When one aligns inwardly with the will of God, his intuition becomes clearer. His radiations brighten. Helpers are drawn to him. Opportunities unfold naturally. Obstacles cease to be threats. Prosperity becomes a natural outcome. This alignment is the highest guarantee of a fruitful life. To be aligned with the will of God is to be carried upward by the laws themselves. Part 5. The Enemies of Ascent, Blessings, and Prosperity. How Humanity Blocks Its Own Upliftment. Chapter 21. Greed and the Loss of Spiritual Sensitivity. Greed is one of the most powerful blockages to ascent. It is not merely an excessive desire for material possession, it is a distortion of the spirit's natural longing for expansion. The human spirit was created to rise, to unfold, to give, to produce, to refine, and to bless. But greed takes this upward-pointing urge and bends it downward toward matter, attaching it to accumulation instead of fruitfulness, to possession instead of productivity, to hoarding instead of usefulness. In the radiational logic of creation, every pure desire expands outward like a circle of light. It uplifts, it attracts, it connects, it grows. But greed narrows the radiational field. It shrinks instead of expands. It suffocates instead of liberates. Greed is a contraction of light, and all contractions draw darkness. Greed blinds. It deafens the intuition. It thickens the ethereal surrounding of a human being so that subtle guidance, delicate warnings, and noble stirrings can no longer penetrate. A greedy person cannot hear the whisper of truth. His spirit becomes heavy, earth-bound, tied to possessions he cannot even enjoy. True blessings cannot flow where greed resides, because blessings are movements of light. They demand openness, purity, receptivity. Greed is a spiritual clenched fist. Nothing flows in, nothing flows out. To overcome greed is not to embrace poverty. It is to return to spiritual sensitivity, where one desires to be fruitful, not merely to acquire. Where the joy of giving outweighs the fear of losing. Where the soul expands again toward the light and prepares itself for real ascent. Chapter 22. Fear, Doubt, and Inner Disconnection. Fear is one of the greatest enemies of ascent. It weakens the radiational field, dims the intuitive perception, and disconnects the human spirit from the currents of guidance that flow from the light. Fear is anti-radiational. It creates dark folds in the ethereal environment, making it difficult for blessings to land and for prosperity to flow naturally. Doubt is fear's close sibling. Doubt interrupts the natural unfolding of the spirit by undermining conviction. It leads to half-hearted action, scattered will, and inner instability. The Grail Message teaches that the human spirit must affirm with clarity. A wavering will cannot attract the currents needed for fruitful results. Fear and doubt together produce a state of inner disconnection. It is not God who turns away from man. It is man whose fear-clouded radiations prevent him from perceiving the light that is always present. Blessings cannot attach to a field that flickers between trust and fear, between openness and contraction. To rise, man must banish fear, not by force, nor by positive thinking, but by right recognition. Fear loses its power when man understands. He is surrounded by spiritual laws that never fail. He cannot reap what he has not sown. He cannot lose what belongs to him by law. He cannot gain what he has not inwardly earned. Fear dissolves in the presence of truth. Doubt dissolves when the spirit awakens. And inner connection is restored when man steps back into harmony with the laws of creation. Chapter 23. Intellectual Domination and its Anti-Spiritual Effects. Intellectual domination is one of the most subtle yet powerful enemies of ascent. The intellect is a necessary tool for earthly navigation, but it becomes a tyrant when it oversteps its boundaries. The intellect cannot perceive radiations, cannot hear intuition, cannot grasp spiritual laws. It can only reason within the narrow limits of earthly logic. When the intellect dominates, man becomes spiritually blind. He evaluates life solely by material success, social standing, and visible outcomes. He loses his upward gaze. He becomes trapped in immediacy, measurement, comparison, competition, never recognizing that true prosperity flows from the spirit, not the brain. The intellect is cold. It lacks warmth. It cannot open doors to blessings because blessings are movements of light that can be felt but never calculated. A mind-dominated human being becomes overly cautious, overly analytical, hesitant, inwardly dry, radiationally weak. Ascent requires warmth, living conviction, faithfulness to inner knowing, and openness to spiritual guidance. The intellect knows none of these. The Grail Message warns that when man placed the intellect above the spirit, he cut himself off from the currents that sustain life. Intellectual domination is not strength. It is imprisonment in the lowest layer of earthly existence. To break free, the intellect must take its rightful place, as a servant of the awakened spirit. Chapter 24. Pride and Entitlement, the Poison of Blessings. Pride is a distortion of spiritual strength. It feeds on illusions of self-sufficiency. Pride blinds a person to the workings of the laws, making him believe that he achieves everything by his own effort. Entitlement is its companion, the false belief that one deserves blessings without cultivating the conditions for them. Where pride enters, grace retreats. Where entitlement exists, blessings dry up. Pride closes the heart. It blocks humility, gratitude, and recognition, all essential conditions for receiving blessings. Pride is radiationally heavy. It does not rise. It sinks. It attracts humiliation and collapse, not because God punishes pride, but because the laws of creation demand balance. What rises without inner grounding must fall. Entitlement destroys inner striving. It extinguishes the noble desire to earn, to grow, to refine. Entitlement expects harvest without sowing, results without effort, prosperity without transformation. The laws do not respond to entitlement, they respond to inner condition. A proud man cannot be blessed, because blessings require openness, purity, and readiness. Only a humble heart can receive abundance, for humility aligns a person with the light. Chapter 25, Impurity of Motive and the Corruption of Prosperity. Man's motives determine his radiational signature. The laws respond not to the outer action, but to the inner volition behind it. Therefore, motives that are impure, selfishness, manipulation, deceit, vanity, ambition, corrupt the flow of ascent and prosperity. A person may appear outwardly successful, yet inwardly be barren. This is the prosperity of illusion, not the prosperity of the light. When motives are dark, blessings do not flow, instead, consequences accumulate. The harvest may be delayed, but it never fails. Wrong motives distort prosperity in three major ways. 1. They attract the wrong people and opportunities. Like attracts like. Impure motives draw impure environments, leading eventually to collapse. 2. They poison the fruits of success. What is acquired through crooked motives never brings peace, because peace is a radiational result, not a material one. 3. They prevent spiritual growth. Progress becomes impossible where the inner seed is corrupt. Even apparent success becomes a snare. Purity of motive, on the other hand, creates clarity of path, the right assistance, the right timing, the right outcomes, lasting prosperity. The Grail Message teaches that every human being is a walking field of radiations, constantly sowing through their motives and reaping through their experiences. To purify motive is to purify destiny. Part 6, Ascent in Daily Living. Practical alignment with the laws of creation. Chapter 26, Ascent through service and responsibility. True ascent is never an abstract spiritual idea, it is always visible in a human being's conduct. In creation, nothing rises through idleness or passivity. Everything rises through movement, purposeful, noble, uplifting movement. This is why service and responsibility form the first foundation of ascent. Service, in the light of truth, is not servitude, nor forced self-denial, nor doing for others what they should do for themselves. It is the natural expression of a spirit that is awake, strong, and inwardly alive. A spiritually ascending person must serve, because the living currents of the spirit always press outward, to help, to build, to ennoble, to uplift. In reality, every human being is placed in life to serve in some form. By enriching their environment. By improving the conditions around them. By contributing clarity, peace, or strength. By accomplishing tasks that strengthen the whole. Responsibility, therefore, is the weight-bearing side of service. It is the acceptance of the tasks woven into one's path by the laws of creation. Many people today run from responsibility, confusing it with burden or limitation. But responsibility, correctly understood, is one of the greatest gifts given to mankind, for it is the platform upon which the spirit proves its maturity. In the Grail Message, responsibility is inseparable from the law of reciprocal action. Whatever you take on and carry out with sincerity returns to you as upliftment. Whatever you avoid or abandon also returns, this time as heaviness, stagnation, and missed steps. He or she who embraces service and responsibility rises. He or she who flees from them sinks. Thus ascent begins where a human being sincerely asks, "What can I build? What can I improve? What can I carry faithfully today?" Every honest answer is a rung upward on the ladder toward the light. Chapter 27, ascent through love, purity, and truthfulness. There is no ascent without purity, no blessing without truthfulness, and no prosperity without love. These three form the radiant triad through which the spirit aligns itself with the will of God. Love. Not emotional love, not possessive affection, not sentimental warmth. True love is the clear, noble, uplifting will to bring out the best in all things. True love wants growth, truth, light, and freedom for everyone it touches. Because it comes from the Spirit, it has a rising power. Wherever real love flows, ascent begins naturally. Purity. Purity is the absence of self-seeking. It is the transparent state of the inner being where motives are clean, intentions upright, and desires untainted by vanity or greed. Purity opens doors in creation because like attracts like. A pure heart draws pure help, pure guidance, pure opportunities. Truthfulness. Truthfulness is not merely telling the truth, but living truthfully, without pretense, exaggeration, deceit, or inner crookedness. A truthful human being is straight before the light. This straightness lifts, strengthens, and stabilizes the spirit's upward striving. Love gives warmth. Purity opens gates. Truthfulness provides strength. Where these three live in a human being, ascent is not an effort, it becomes a natural movement upward, like a flame rising toward the heavens. Chapter 28. Ascent through work, diligence, and productivity. Work is divine. In creation, everything is in movement, every star, every leaf, every atom, every law. Nothing is static. Thus, the human spirit, as a part of creation, can only thrive through purposeful activity. Many people pray for blessings but are unwilling to work. They pray for prosperity but avoid diligence. They seek divine upliftment while rejecting the earthly tasks through which upliftment must flow. The Grail Message corrects this misunderstanding sharply. God blesses movement, not passivity. Work is the channel through which spiritual power enters earthly life. Productivity creates openings for blessings to descend. Diligence strengthens the radiational structure of the human being. A diligent person radiates differently. Their aura becomes lighter, clearer, more structured. Opportunities adhere to such a person because creation responds to diligence. Laziness, by contrast, thickens and darkens the ethereal environment. It closes doors, slows radiations, and blocks ascent. Thus, work refines. Diligence uplifts. Productivity strengthens. Every task done with care, whether sweeping a room or building a business, becomes a step on the ladder of ascent. For in creation, quality of work is quality of spirit. Chapter 29. Ascent through inner watchfulness and self-discipline. No ascent is possible without vigilance over the inner life. Impulses, thoughts, desires, and emotions influence radiations far more than outward actions. A person who does not watch himself is like someone climbing a mountain without seeing the loose stones beneath his feet. Inner watchfulness. This is the gentle but firm observation of your inner world. What thoughts arise? What motives are hidden behind your intentions? What emotions seek to dominate you? What impulses push you downward instead of upward? Watchfulness exposes impurity, egoism, vanity, fear, greed, and restlessness before they become actions. It brings clarity into the inner chambers where destiny is shaped. Self-discipline. Discipline is not repression, it is the conscious, willing alignment of your inner life with the light. Discipline strengthens intuition, orders thought, stabilizes emotions, sharpens the will, and builds the foundation upon which blessings can descend. A person lacking self-discipline cannot ascend, even with the best intentions, because the inner structure remains unstable. Together, watchfulness reveals the path. Discipline keeps you on it. These two form the invisible armor of the spiritually ascending human being. With them, he walks safely and steadily through life, untouched by the confusion around him. Chapter 30. Everyday choices that raise or lower you spiritually. Ascent is not a single dramatic leap upward, it is the accumulation of daily choices. Each thought, each word, each action either strengthens the inner brightness or dims it. Small things matter greatly because the laws of creation respond to everything. Choices that raise you. Choosing honesty when deceit seems easier. Choosing purity when temptation calls. Choosing generosity when greed whispers. Choosing courage when fear threatens. Choosing service when indifference beckons. Choosing prayerful clarity instead of emotional reaction. Choosing growth over comfort. Each such choice releases a fine, upward striving radiance. Choices that lower you. Indulging in jealousy, bitterness, or envy. Allowing anger or resentment to dominate. Tolerating inner impurity. Living through the intellect alone. Choosing comfort over truth. Embracing excuses instead of responsibility. Placing material gain above spiritual integrity. Every downward choice thickens the inner atmosphere and slows ascent. The great secret. Ascent is not mysterious. It is not selective. It is not reserved for saints. It is simply the result of the daily decisions that align your inner being with the will of God. In these small choices lies the destiny of every human soul. He who chooses rightly rises. He who chooses wrongly sinks. He who chooses again and again toward the light becomes a beacon in creation. Part 7. How Blessings Flow in Human Life. Understanding the Pathways of Help and Grace. Blessings are not accidents, nor arbitrary favors from a distant deity. They are lawful radiational responses to inner states, attitudes, and actions. Every human being attracts or repels blessings according to the nature of his inner vibration. In the light laws, as illuminated in the Grail Message, blessings are help, upliftment, or openings that appear because the soil within is prepared. Below are the detailed chapters, written in the same rhythm as your previous parts. Chapter 31, Blessings Through Right Connections, Guidance and Helpers. Human beings never walk alone in creation. Every sincere striving attracts helpers, both earthly and ethereal, who appear exactly at the moment when the inner soil is ready to receive them. These helpers are not coincidences but lawful responses of the light to a person's radiational state. 1. The radiational law behind meaningful connections. In creation, like attracts like. This magnetic law draws people together whose vibrations complement a specific stage of learning, growth, or correction. Thus, every true helper in your life appears because something within you has begun to vibrate upward. 2. Why some people block helpful connections. When impurity, pride, stubbornness, or fear dominates, one becomes radiationally closed. Even when a helper is sent, the individual does not recognize them. To perceive the guidance of the light, the heart must be humble, open, and watchful. 3. Helpers as instruments, not sources. A grave error occurs when humans worship the helper and forget the source. A true helper is an instrument, not the origin of the blessing. Blessings flow through people, not from them. 4. The blessing of right separation. Not all connections are meant to remain. Sometimes the light blesses by removing a person whose influence blocks growth. The pain of this removal, when rightly understood, becomes a purification that leads to ascent. Chapter 32, Blessings Through Obstacles, Trials, and Corrections. Humanity runs from trials, yet trials often carry the most profound blessings. In the Grail Message, we learn that every disturbance contains a lawful correction designed to restore harmony within the human spirit. 1. Trials as mirrors of inner weakness. Obstacles reveal unrecognized faults, fear, laziness, pride, carelessness, or impurity. The trial forces recognition, without which ascent is impossible. 2. The blessing in being redirected. Often, a path collapses because it was never aligned with the will of God. The closed door is not punishment but redirection, a loving intervention that prevents a greater fall. 3. Trials strengthen radiational muscles. Just as a body strengthens through resistance, the spirit strengthens through challenges. A life without trials becomes spiritually flabby, incapable of ascent. 4. Correction is a higher form of blessing. Correction is the light's way of ensuring that the human spirit does not perish in its own errors. It calls the spirit back to truth, humility, and responsibility, fertile ground for higher blessings. Chapter 33, Blessings Through Intuitive Promptings and Inner Peace. True blessings flow quietly, inwardly, long before they manifest outwardly. 1. Intuition is the gateway of blessings. The intuition is the spirit's eye. When it is pure and unobstructed, the human being receives direct guidance, warnings, impulses, nudges, and inspirations. 2. Peace is a sign of alignment. Inner peace is not emotional quietness but radiational harmony with the light. Whenever the heart becomes calm, receptive, and clear, blessings begin to gather around the person. 3. The inward yes and no. Light-born intuition says, yes, through warmth, upliftment, and clarity. It says, no, through heaviness, uneasiness, or subtle withdrawal. Those who learn this language walk under constant blessing. 4. The loss of blessing through noise and distraction. Modern humanity has drowned out intuition with noise, social noise, emotional noise, technological noise. Only the inwardly watchful can receive the blessings poured toward humanity every day. Chapter 34. Blessings through creative ideas and inspired actions. Blessings often come in the form of ideas, solutions, inspirations, insights, or inventions that open new pathways. 1. The radiational origin of inspired ideas. Ideas are not produced by the brain. They descend from higher realms into a receptive intuition and then enter the intellect for execution. This descent is itself a blessing. 2. Creative impulses as seeds. Every good idea is a seed. But only those who act in purity, diligence, and courage allow the seed to bear fruit. 3. The blessing of skill and capability. The light strengthens those who act. New abilities emerge, new strengths awaken, and new opportunities unfold. This is a blessing earned through faithful use of gifts. 4. The danger of intellectual self-glorification. When the intellect takes credit for inspiration, the flow of blessings diminishes. Humility keeps the channel open. Chapter 35. Blessings through gratitude and radiational purity. Gratitude is more than an attitude, it is a radiational condition that opens pathways to further blessings. 1. Gratitude is a magnetic force. A grateful heart emits a bright radiation that aligns with the light. This makes the person receptive to greater help and guidance. 2. Complaining is a blessing reversal. Complaining, self-pity, and resentment distort the radiations around a person, repelling blessings that were already approaching. 3. Purity magnifies blessings. The purer the inner life, thoughts, motives, speech, and actions, the wider the channels through which blessings can flow. 4. The blessed human being. A person who lives in gratitude, clarity, humility, and purity becomes a blessing magnet. Blessings gather around such a one, not because they ask or demand, but because they radiate in harmony with the laws of the light. Part 8. Prosperity is a lifestyle of order and light. How purity and uprightness produce lasting fruit. Chapter 36. Prosperity through clarity and sound decision-making. True prosperity begins long before physical results appear. It starts in the inner atmosphere, where clarity enables choices that align with the natural currents of the laws of creation. The Grail Message emphasizes that confusion, haste, and emotional turbulence cloud the intuitive perception, while clarity strengthens it. Clarity is not merely mental calculation, it is an unobstructed radiational state in which the spirit can recognize what is right and what is wrong. From this recognition come decisions that bear good fruit. Every clear decision plants a seed that must, through the law of reciprocal action, return with corresponding prosperity. Sound decision-making arises when the intellect is calm and serving, not dominating. The intuition is awake and given space to speak. Personal desires and fears do not distort perception. One seeks what is right, not merely what is profitable. Such decisions naturally attract helpers, open doors, and prevent unnecessary losses. True prosperity grows where order reigns inwardly. Chapter 37. Prosperity through righteous relationships. Prosperity is not an isolated achievement. Human beings are designed to grow through connection, through mutual support, exchange, cooperation, and service. Radiationally, relationships form bridges through which blessings flow. Righteous relationships are built on truthfulness, no deceit, manipulation, or hidden motives. Respect, honoring the spiritual dignity of others. Justice, giving each person what is due to them. Goodwill, wanting the other to rise, not fall. Such relationships create a harmonious field of radiations that attracts opportunities, favor, and support. Just as wrong companions can darken one's path, upright companions strengthen one's ascent. Prosperity expands where relationships are clean, honest, and guided by mutual upliftment. The Grail Message teaches that every friendship, partnership, or association either strengthens the spirit's ascent or hinders it. Thus, prosperity follows those who cultivate righteous relationships intentionally. Chapter 38. Prosperity through work that serves a higher purpose. Work is not merely a means of income, it is a spiritual activity, a form of sowing. The nature of what you sow determines the nature of what returns. Work done in truth, responsibility, diligence, and service to others naturally creates prosperity. When a person's work aligns with the laws, several things occur. They attract the right opportunities. They retain helpers and clients effortlessly. Their creativity expands. Their inner peace remains intact. Their efforts bear fruit that lasts. But when work springs from greed, exploitation, or vanity, the seeds are poisoned, and so will be the harvest. The Grail Message clarifies that prosperity flows most powerfully where work is useful, uplifting, conscientious, honest, done with love for quality. Such work stands in the light and therefore must attract blessings. It becomes a channel through which the spirit expresses its capabilities and fulfills its earthly mission. Chapter 39. Prosperity through character, the true wealth of the spirit. Character is the foundation of all lasting prosperity. Wealth without character collapses. Success without uprightness corrupts. Blessings without preparedness destroy. Character determines the quality of decisions, the integrity of relationships, the strength of persistence, the purity of motives, the clarity of perception. Prosperity is, in essence, the outward reflection of inner order. A person who is disciplined, truthful, courageous, humble, and responsible naturally attracts higher paths and greater resources. They become trustworthy in the radiational sense, meaning spiritual laws can entrust more to them. The Grail Message teaches, where character is strong, blessings can flow unhindered. Where character is weak, blessings cannot remain. Therefore, true prosperity is not first about possessions, it is about becoming a vessel that can hold and rightly use them. Chapter 40. Prosperity through harmony with the laws of creation. All true prosperity flows from alignment with the unchangeable laws of creation. The law of attraction, the law of reciprocal action, the law of development. When a human being harmonizes with these laws, prosperity becomes effortless, because one works with the currents, not against them. Balanced, because it grows in all areas, spirit, mind, relationships, work. Sustainable, because nothing is forced or stolen. Peaceful, because the source is the light, not manipulation or struggle. Harmony with the laws requires purity of will, right sowing, upright intentions, service-oriented action, watchfulness over thoughts and motives. A person who lives this way stands like a tree planted beside living waters. Their life radiates order, peace, clarity, and fruitfulness. Prosperity becomes not an achievement, but a natural consequence, the quiet harvest of a life aligned with truth. Part 9. Transformation, becoming a conduit of light. The human being is a channel of blessing, order, and fruitfulness. Chapter 41. The radiating human being. To understand ascent, blessings, and prosperity in their purest sense, one must realize that the human being is fundamentally a radiating entity. Everything a person thinks, wills, and feels streams outward into creation, forming currents that either harmonize with the light or oppose it. The Grail Message emphasizes that the human spirit is not passive, it constantly emits radiations that attract similar forms. Thus the state of our inner being determines the quality of our outer experience. A human being who is inwardly pure, clear, and upright radiates luminous forces that bless, uplift, and strengthen everything around them. Their presence alone becomes calming, their words carry weight, their decisions bear fruit. This radiating strength is not charisma, emotional warmth, or personality, It is a spiritual reality, an emanation from the core of the human spirit aligned with the laws of creation. Conversely, the person burdened with fear, greed, dishonesty, or impurity radiates distortions that repel help, attract difficulties, and weaken others. This explains why transformation is essential. To prosper in truth, one must first become inwardly luminous, because blessings cannot attach themselves to a chaotic inner atmosphere. To radiate light consciously is to live in truth, to will the good, and to allow the spirit, not the intellect, to shape one's path. Such a person becomes a silent but powerful instrument of order in the world. Chapter 42, Becoming a Blessing to Others. Blessings are not merely received, they also flow through individuals into the world. According to the Grail Message, every human being is meant to become a channel through which higher help can reach others. This is the true meaning of being a blessing, to allow the light to work through you because your inner state no longer obstructs it. A person becomes a blessing through purity of intention, sincere goodwill, courage to act in truth, compassion balanced with justice, readiness to serve where needed. Blessing others does not require wealth, eloquence, or official positions. A kind word spoken at the right moment, a warning given in truth, a silent prayer for another person, a helpful action, or a firm stand for justice, each of these can become a vessel of light. When one becomes a blessing, life begins to open in new ways. Relationships become more genuine, opportunities appear naturally, and confusion dissolves. People feel safe, strengthened, or elevated in your presence without fully understanding why. But this flow is impossible for someone who clings to selfishness, pride, or hidden agendas. Blessings cannot pass through a blocked channel. Therefore, the first work is always inner cleansing. A life that blesses others becomes a life that is perpetually blessed. Chapter 43, The Prosperous Spirit and Its Impact on the World. Prosperity in the light is not accumulation but fruitfulness. A prosperous spirit is one that brings forth good wherever it moves. It is constantly productive, not materially only, but morally, spiritually, intellectually, and relationally. Everything the prosperous spirit touches becomes more orderly, more peaceful, more meaningful. This kind of prosperity is a direct result of inner harmony with the laws of creation. Such individuals make sound decisions, attract right circumstances, inspire trust, build enduring relationships, navigate difficulties with clarity, generate solutions instead of problems. In a world filled with disorder, confusion, and moral fatigue, the prosperous spirit acts as a pillar of stability. Others naturally gravitate toward them because their presence offers direction. They are not carried by the waves of popular opinion or the anxieties of society, but by their intuitive connection to truth. Their impact is not loud, it is quiet but powerful, like a tree whose roots nourish the soil without being seen. Families are strengthened, workplaces become more orderly, communities develop resilience, and destinies are uplifted when such people arise. This is the prosperity the Grail Message points to, the flourishing of the spirit that continues well beyond earthly boundaries. Chapter 44, Leadership Through Light and Purity. True leadership is not authority, it is radiational influence. The greatest leaders in creation are those who stand closest to the light, who are pure in will and unwavering in truth. Their leadership arises naturally, not through ambition, but through spiritual stature. The human being becomes a leader through integrity that never bends, the courage to uphold truth despite resistance, love that seeks the highest good of others, clarity that pierces confusion, service that builds rather than dominates. Such leadership is desperately needed in a world where many leaders are driven by ambition, manipulation, or selfish motives. These are not leaders, they are obstacles. Light-based leadership requires humility. It requires listening to the intuition, acting with fairness, acknowledging errors, and correcting oneself quickly. It rejects favoritism, corruption, and emotional manipulation. A leader in the light uplifts others, he does not control them. He reveals possibilities, awakens potentials, and inspires responsibility. His presence brings order because his inner radiations, aligned with the spiritual laws, naturally impose harmony on his surroundings. This form of leadership transforms families, organizations, and nations, one clarified human being at a time. Chapter 45. The human being is a builder in creation. Every human spirit incarnates on earth with the responsibility of building, not structures of stone, but structures of meaning, order, truth, and fruitfulness. We are called to shape our environment, refine ourselves, uplift others, and contribute to the great weaving of creation. To build is to create value, repair what is broken, strengthen what is weak, illuminate what is dark, bring order where there is confusion, transform potential into reality. The Grail Message teaches that the human spirit is intended to be an active co-worker in creation. Not a passive observer, not a mere consumer, not a complainer, but a builder. This role is fulfilled when one's intuitive perceptions guide one's actions. The builder in creation acts from conviction, not emotion, from clarity, not pressure. His work, no matter how simple, becomes a blessing because it is aligned with the laws. A builder does not destroy. He does not scatter. He does not weaken. Wherever he goes, things improve. Such a human being rises, receives blessings, and prospers, not as rewards, but as natural consequences. When humanity returns to its role as builders rather than destroyers, ascent will accelerate, blessings will multiply, and prosperity will become the normal vibration of earthly life. Part 10. Practical steps to ascent, blessings, and prosperity. Exercises for clarity, order, and daily spiritual strength. Chapter 46. Daily purification exercises. Clearing the inner atmosphere to rise freely. Purification is not a ritual, nor a chant, nor an emotional outburst. It is a daily, conscious alignment of your inner life with the laws of creation. The Grail Message teaches that every thought, intention, and inner movement releases radiations. These radiations either lift you upward or weigh you down. Therefore, daily purification means removing every weight before it settles and forms a knot. A simple foundational practice is the morning clearing. Sit quietly in the early hours when the atmosphere is still. Bring your inner life before you honestly, without excuses, defensiveness, or fear. Observe any heaviness, grudges, resentments, jealousies, or impurities that surfaced yesterday. Release each one, not by willpower, but by truthful recognition. This does not belong in the light. I let it go. Another practice is the evening review, a few minutes of stillness where you examine your day. Not to condemn yourself, but to see clearly, correct immediately, and avoid repeating errors. Finally, practice inner freshness during the day, a short moment of withdrawal where you reset your attitude and cleanse any forming shadows. Purification is the key that unlocks ascent, blessings, and prosperity, because only the pure can remain open to the light. Chapter 47. Practices for strengthening the intuition. The spirit's compass and guiding flame. The intuition is the human spirit's true eye, the organ through which ascent, blessings, and prosperity are recognized and received. But in modern times, the intuition has been buried under layers of overthinking, emotional turbulence, and intellectual domination. To strengthen the intuition, begin with quiet listening. Sit in silence without forcing thoughts. Let the intellect rest as a passive tool. Turn inward toward the gentle, living core within you. Wait, not for voices or visions, but for clarity, the soft, unmistakable knowing. Another exercise is truth calibration. Whenever you face a choice, ask yourself, does this feel light or heavy? Does it uplift or cloud my inner atmosphere? Does it align with purity, honesty, and service? The intuition always speaks through clarity, simplicity, purity, and peace. Confusion, anxiety, and pressure come from the intellect. Finally, practice attentiveness to signs. Life constantly speaks through events, timing, obstacles, coincidences, and inner nudges. The more receptive you become, the more guidance flows. A strengthened intuition becomes a magnet for blessings and a steering force toward prosperity. Chapter 48. Radiational cleansing techniques. Lightening the aura to receive the flow of blessings. Human beings radiate continuously. These radiations form a personal atmosphere, your aura. When darkened by fear, envy, impurity, laziness, dishonesty, or bitterness, this aura repels blessings and attracts experiences that mirror its state. Cleansing your radiations is therefore essential. One powerful method is the breath of clarity. Breathe in deeply with the awareness, I receive light. Hold the breath for a moment, focusing on purity. Exhale slowly with the intention, I release all heaviness. Repeat until your inner atmosphere feels lighter. Another technique is the light visualization, not fantasy, but a spiritual posture. Imagine yourself standing in a gentle, radiant stream of light. Allow it to flow through your inner being, revealing and dissolving shadows. Do not force anything, simply open yourself inwardly. Also practice radiational hygiene. Avoid gossip, negativity, and unclean environments. Engage with noble, uplifting content. Work in an orderly atmosphere. Keep your physical surroundings clean, outer order strengthens inner radiation. A cleansed radiational field enhances clarity, draws blessings, and harmonizes you with prosperity. Chapter 49, Weekly Reflection Questions for Spiritual Progress. Guided Self-Examination to Maintain Ascent. Weekly reflections help you measure your alignment with the laws of creation. They reveal hidden weaknesses, strengthen resolve, and recalibrate your path. Here are core reflection questions. Where was I inwardly impure this week? Did I allow envy, resentment, dishonesty, or lust to cloud my radiations? Where did I resist the inner voice? Was I stubborn, fearful, or intellectually overactive when guidance came? Where did I grow? What new light, clarity, or strength did I gain? What repeated mistakes appeared? Patterns show where correction is still needed. Did I serve or burden others? True ascent is always connected with uplifting others. Was my work done with purity, diligence, and purpose? Prosperity grows where order and sincerity prevail. What must be corrected before the new week begins? Reflection without correction is empty. These weekly practices sharpen your discernment and prepare you for deeper blessings. Chapter 50, Building a Lifelong Rhythm of Upright Action. The Pathway to Enduring Ascent, Blessings, and Prosperity. A rhythm is a law. In creation, everything moves in rhythms, day and night, seasons, breathing, growth cycles. Human ascent also depends on rhythm, steady, consistent movements in the right direction. Begin by establishing a daily structure aligned with light. A few minutes of morning purification. A moment of intuitive listening before major decisions. Upright, truthful conduct throughout your day. Order in work and relationships. An evening examination to close the day in clarity. Next, cultivate a weekly rhythm of renewal. Reflection. Correction. Recommitment. Practical improvement in character and habits. Then build a lifelong rhythm. Pursue meaningful service. Maintain purity of motives. Follow intuitive guidance. Seek refinement rather than accumulation. Choose truth over convenience. Stay teachable and humble before the laws. Upright action creates an atmosphere where blessings naturally flow. Prosperity becomes the fruit of a well-ordered life. And ascent becomes the inevitable outcome of a spirit aligned with truth. This rhythm is not a burden, it is liberation. It turns your entire life into a harmonious dance with the will of God. Conclusion. The human being WHO rises in light. A world transformed through purity, blessings, and fruitfulness. The human being who rises in light is not the one who has accumulated the most wealth, achieved the loudest recognitions, or held the highest earthly positions. Rather, it is the one whose inner being is upright, luminous, and harmoniously attuned to the laws of creation. Such a person stands as a bearer of blessing, not because he forces blessings to come, but because blessings naturally flow toward purity, clarity, and inner order. Ascent is thus not a climb up a human ladder of achievement, but a gradual loosening from the weight of impurity, from greed, fear, pride, vanity, and self-deception. Blessings, in turn, are not miracles obtained through rituals or emotional pleas, but lawful consequences of radiational harmony. And prosperity, finally, is not a result of manipulation, spiritual or otherwise, but the ripened fruit of a life aligned with truth. When a human being becomes inwardly luminous, everything in his environment begins to reorganize around him. Confusion gives way to clarity, Chaos yields to order. Struggle is replaced with purposeful movement. He becomes a magnet for peace, guidance, right opportunities, and right connections, because light attracts what belongs to it. A world where even a small number of people rise in light becomes transformed. Such individuals uplift families, institutions, communities, and nations, not by preaching, but by radiating. Their lives themselves become laws, the living testimony of what happens when the spirit becomes active again. This is the promise for humanity today. A world renewed through individuals who awaken to purity, blessings, and fruitfulness, not as wishes, but as realities flowing from spiritual obedience. Epilogue. The coming separation. Ascent in the age of judgment, prosperity in the new creation. We stand in an age where the laws of creation are intensifying. Every thought, word, motive, and intention now returns to the sender with unprecedented speed and clarity. This is not punishment, it is purification. It is the long-promised separation that the prophets, seers, and wise ones foresaw, a dividing of light from darkness, clarity from confusion, purity from corruption. In this age of judgment, ascent becomes no longer optional. Every human being is now confronted with his own inner state. What was once hidden emerges. What was once tolerated collapses. What was once ignored now demands attention. The proud will fall. The greedy will suffocate in their own desires. The deceitful will be ensnared by their own nets. The impure will be unable to withstand the radiance of the light. But the upright will rise. The pure will flourish. Those who align with truth will prosper, spiritually first, then materially in the new order that follows. Prosperity in the new creation will no longer be determined by connections, manipulation, ambition, or systems built on injustice. Rather, it will be the lawful harvest of inner purity, diligence, service, and harmony with the will of God. Humanity is being sifted, not through violence or force, but through the infallible operation of spiritual laws. Only those whose inner being harmonizes with light will stand firm in what is coming. And they will form the seed of a renewed humanity, one that lives in truth, works with joy, receives blessings lawfully, and rises continuously toward the summit of spiritual maturity. Appendix. Practices for ascent, blessings, and prosperity. Continuing this Grail-inspired rhythm of clarification, enlightenment, and correction. Below are practical tools designed to help the reader not only understand but live ascent, blessings, and prosperity. 1. Meditations for ascent and inner purification. A. Morning light alignment. Quietly visualize the light descending upon you, illuminating thoughts, motives, and intentions. Affirm inwardly. Let my will align with what is pure, true, and uplifting. B. Midday purity check. Pause briefly. Ask. What is driving my actions right now, purity or self-seeking? Redirect as needed. C. Evening review. Without judgment, but with honesty, review the day. Where did you rise? Where did you descend? Resolve to adjust. 2. Exercises for strengthening the intuition. A. The stillness practice. Sit quietly for 5 minutes daily. Focus on the chest area, where the intuition speaks. Let insights arise without forcing. B. Intuitive decision exercise. Before making decisions, ask. How does this feel inwardly? If there is heaviness, delay. If there is clarity, proceed. 3. Radiational cleansing techniques. A. Breath and light flow. Inhale deeply while imagining pure light entering your system. Exhale imagining dark clouds leaving, representing fear, greed, doubt, confusion. B. Purity visualization. Imagine your inner being like a crystal clearing under a stream of radiant light. 4. Weekly reflection questions for spiritual progress. Did my thoughts this week uplift or darken me? Were my decisions based on fear or clarity? Did I act from purity or from hidden motives? What blessings did I notice flowing toward me? Where did I obstruct prosperity through wrong attitudes? 5. Building a lifelong rhythm of upright action. Set clear spiritual priorities. Practice honesty in small things. Reject greed and manipulation. Cultivate gratitude daily. Serve wherever possible. Stay faithful to inner convictions, even when no one sees.